is not sufficient. We have to see if there was the right intention, the right form, and the right matter at Vatican II.
Father, if I may interject at this
Sure.
point. Ecumenical. And today we have I think a different idea of ecumenical than you are proposing to what you're saying. Could you explain?
Thank you, John. That's
the word?
extremely important, because the word ecumenical obviously today means let us all gather together in the Holy Spirit and forget our differences and worship whatever God you like. This is not ecumenical at all, because the word ecumenical is Greek. In Greek it's oikomene. Oikos in Greek is the house. Oikomene is the household. Everything that belongs to the household. Now, take an average family. It's a household, right? Who's part of the oikomene? The house, obviously. Father, mother, children, and if they're living together, grandparents, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, whatever. Those who belong there. That's oikomene. And from the very beginning of church history, it was called ecumenical not because heretics were allowed to participate. On the contrary, they were safeguarding their wherever the council took place in order to make sure no heretic and no schismatic was let in, because this was ecumenical. It was an event that belonged to the household and was none of the outsider's business. So all the bishops in union with the Pope were called. Nobody else. Period. That's what it means, ecumenical council. At Vatican II, that's one of the things. It wouldn't invalidate the council, but it's one of the things that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, John the 23rd made a contract with Moscow that he will not allow the council to condemn communism or Soviet Russia or the satellite states, or as a matter of fact any other communist state or communism as such, simply in order to have the great, extraordinary, unbelievable privilege granted of having two Russian Orthodox KGB agents participating in the council. This, of course, is absurd, but it wouldn't invalidate the council. So it's an interesting historic note on one who committed treason in the Catholic Church. Some people say he's blessed, I say he's not. And but we have to stay with the facts, otherwise we'd be sitting here at 2 o'clock at night. The facts are, what is the intention for a council? What is the right intention? All the dictionaries will agree on that. Not just the dictionaries. I'm for simplicity's sake here, I'm quoting the dictionaries. I cannot give you, I have not the list of books memorized that I studied in order to see if you could really talk about an invalidated council or not. I want, at this occasion, by the way, I want to underline the fact that whatever you think about Father Hesse, the very thought that the ecumenical, so-called ecumenical Council Vatican II was not indeed an ecumenical council at all, occurred to me the first time in 1996, believe it or not earlier than that. In 1996, when I read a series of, when I started to read a series of articles, beautiful articles, profound articles, excellent articles, in the CC No. That's a publication that, if I'm right, in the United States is called Rome Courier. Is that right? Well, anyway, in France it's called Courrier de Rome. In German it's called Rome Courier. And in the original Italian, it's called CC No. You remember CC No means yes, yes, no, no. Esto hologos humon, nai, u, as Christ said, this may be your words, yes, yes, no, no. He didn't want twisted answers and lies. And in this wonderful publication, where I've never found anything but beautiful theology, I really started to understand that we were all gravely mistaken, thinking that Vatican II might be something like a less than perfect council, or a council containing errors, or whatever each one of us was thinking. I really understood that it was not a council at all, simply because I said there has to be the intention, the matter, and the form. What is the right intention of a council, except to do what the church does. Now, what does it mean? What does the church do when a council is called? We understand that the intention must be to do what the church does. But what does the church do when a council is called? Well, again, on this, all the sources I consulted, except poor Ludwig Ott, I say again, I highly recommend Ludwig Ott. But we are, all of us, including the Pope, we are not infallible. The Pope only sometimes is infallible and nobody else. Most of the sources agree that the purpose of a council, intention, the purpose of council is to condemn errors and to define doctrine. Pope John the 23rd, when he announced his supposedly inspired decision to call a council, said that we will not condemn anything in this council, it shall be a pastoral council. That's what he called a contradictio in adjecto, a contradiction as to its terms. All the 20 ecumenical councils, and I say again, the first 8 were called by the emperor. The first 8 called by the emperor, the other councils called by the popes, were called together in order to clear up doctrine and to destroy error. In 1786, a bunch of crazy bishops, called together by an even more crazy Austrian Habsburg Archduke in Tuscany, gathered together in the otherwise little-known town of Pistoia in order to decide, quote-unquote, about reforms in the church. It was because of political circumstances. You have to remember it was the time of Napoleon Bonaparte. It needed until 1799, until Pope Pius VI published one of the most unusual documents in church history, under the title, for those who are interested, find the document on your, what's that beeping thing on your screen, the website. Find it there, because you can find it there, somebody told me. It's called Auctorem Fidei. I spell that for those who really want to do their own research. Auctorem Fidei. Alpha, Uniform, Charlie, Tango, Echo, Mike. The second word is Foxtrot, India, Delta, Echo, India. Find the document for the simple reason it is exceptional. Most of the papal bulls and encyclicals, a bull is when a pope decides about things, and encyclical is when he just teaches. Most of the papal bulls and encyclicals are addressed to the fellow patriarchs, cardinals, bishops, archbishops, and whatever, prelates in the church. Not so Auctorem Fidei. Pope Pius VI wanted every Christi Fidelis, Christ faithful, to read that document, and very unusual, he addressed the document ad omnes Christi Fideles, to all faithful in Christ. And there he says, I quote the most important line, the purpose of a synod. The word synod is the Greek term for the Latin word council. Council is concilium, when you gather together. Synodos in Greek, hodos means the way. Syn means like cum. Concilium is cumcilium. Synodos is the same word. It's the Greek translation of council, and council is the Latin translation of synod. Pius VI says, the purpose of a synod is to clarify terms, not to complicate them. Obviously, because the truth is infinitely simple, ultimately. Since God is infinitely simple. God is not only infinitely simple, God is absolutely simple. If God is absolutely simple, the higher the truth, the simpler it is. Therefore, you cannot possibly claim to pronounce the truth if you complicate it. That's why Pius VI said the purpose of a synod is to clarify terms. What did Pope Pius IX do in 1854 when he made the Immaculate Conception a dogma? Simple. He didn't say anything new. He just said, This is exactly the way it has to be understood, period, and that period is forever. So,
Father, before you go on to that,
sure.
could you expand a bit on a bull and an encyclical?
Oh, I just said a bull is a document in which the Pope makes decisions, like in Quo Primum, where he says that this missal has to be used forever, and an encyclical usually is one of his teaching documents.
So the papal bull is for all the church.
So is the encyclical.
What's the difference?
I just said. It's a historic distinction between actually a few pages of paper, more or less few, and signed by the Pope. There is the possibility of a papal constitution. There can be a papal bull. There can be a papal encyclical. Basically, it's all the ordinary magisterium or the ordinary power of the Pope. A power he enjoys not because he's a good man, which he very often wasn't, but a power that he enjoys simply because he has been elected Pope. And the Pope, as all pastors in the Church, has three powers: the power of governing, the power of teaching, and the jurisdictional power.
So a bull has no more weight than an encyclical.
No, a bull usually is more decisive, while in an encyclical the Pope will explain something theologically, like Pius X did in his famous encyclical against modernism, Pascendi Dominici Gregis of 1907, and then in the papal bull, as I just quoted, the most important liturgical bull in history, Quo Primum, which canonizes the Roman Missal of 1570, and makes it impossible for any future pope, because we're dealing with something infinitely more important than just disciplinary action, or questions, or disciplinary matter. He made it impossible even for a future pope to change that. So it's a very grave and important decision, and that's what you usually call a bulla. But the term goes back to the times when such important documents were not just signed, but also signed and sealed. Remember good old Cowboy Coper, signed, sealed, and delivered. And so the word bulla means the seal is put on it. It's actually, allow me for the sake of time to simplify things, it's a historical question. And then after explaining in Auctorium Fidei that the purpose of a synod is to clarify terms, not to complicate them, Pius VI goes on and in detail condemns some of these really absurd theories and statements of this collection of crazy bishops and Austrian Habsburgs at Pistoia. And the interesting thing is that in Auctorium Fidei, the Pope condemns theories that at Vatican II were published as doctrine, or as the wish of the Church, or as a pastoral proposal, or whatever these confused minds wanted to call it. Now here is something that I have to explain to you. There is a traditional hierarchy of truth, not the way the Vatican II says. If Vatican II talks about a hierarchy of truth, that means we have some important truth that everybody has to believe, and then we have some lesser truth that not everybody has to believe. This is blasphemy. Christ said, I am truth. So what? I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to believe in the face of Christ and not in the rest of him, or what? I mean, this is ridiculous. Christ didn't say, I give you a list of truths to choose from. He didn't say, I give you a list of truths, and the first 10 you have to believe, otherwise you go to hell, and for the other 40 you can choose if you like him or not. Christ didn't say anything of that. Christ was not talking about truth, T-R-U-T-H-S. Christ said, capital T-R-U-T-H, I am the truth. So, the popes have never, fortunately, until, of course, 1958 or whatever, the popes have never tired to repeat that we have to believe everything the Church teaches, and if we omit one thing, then we have lost the rest. take